Yo, what is going on, everybody? This is Beanie and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be starting a brand new series. I don't know what I'm going to call it. I guess I may call it like all-time greats or something. But what it is going to be is we are going to run through every single MLB team on MLB The Show and take all of the players that they have so far. We're going to put together a 25-man roster for each team, and then I'm going to assign them a team score. I'm going to do 1 out of 10 for pitching, 1 out of 10 for their bullpen, or starters, 1 out of 10 for their bullpen, and then 1 out of 10 for their hitters to assign them a score 1 out of 30, or I guess 0 out of 30. And from that, we are going to, every day I'm going to come out with a new one of these, and we are going to rank all of the all-time teams. So, for example, I would take, let's just say, for instance, the Orioles, and I would put together the best possible 25-man roster that I could using their flashbacks and their live series players. And then I will grade that team, and then I will place them somewhere in the rankings according to their scores. So let's say the Orioles, I'm just throwing out a random number, let's say the Orioles score a 21 out of 30. And then the Red Sox score a 23 out of 30. And then the Yankees score a 25 out of 30. That would make the Yankees number 1, the Red Sox number 2, and the Orioles number 3, obviously. The reason behind this is this is just kind of something that I've been wanting to do for a while. I've always kind of found it, I just kind of find it interesting to go through all the teams and see what the best possible team I could make using, only their players, their flashbacks, their legends, and their live series players to make an all-time team. I just thought it was like kind of fun to do that. So I figured I would do this for you, and my goal is to figure out of all 30 teams, which one is the ultimate all-time team, which one is the best, which one is the GOAT, which one could you just play with in regular Diamond Dynasty and it would be just a regular OP squad. That is my goal with this, and we are going to figure that out. And what I may do, because teams change, they add new players and stuff like that. What I may do is I may get down to like the final 8 once I do all 30 of them. And then once I get down to the final 8, we'll see if they've added any new players or anything. And then we're going to build it again and go head to head like in a bracket style thing to figure out who the ultimate team is on this game. Is it the Orioles? Is it the Red Sox? Is it your favorite team? We're going to find out. Anyways, guys, let's get into it. Okay, guys, and we are going to be starting out with the all-time great Giants. We're going to start with the Giants. I didn't want to start with the Orioles. I wanted to kind of go backwards. And, man, the Giants are going to set a high standard, guys. This is an extremely good all-time team, especially when it comes to starting pitching. So with starting pitching, as you can see, they are just chock full of diamonds. Obviously, you got to start out with the 98 Gaylord Perry. Then you go with the 97 Juan Marichal. So you have 2 aces right there. And then you go to their live series, and I think you got to throw in Madison Bumgarner, get you a nice little shutdown lefty in there. And then, I thought about going with the Johnny Cueto, and then topping it off with the Vida Blue to give you 2 lefties and, have an all-diamond thing. But the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I don't want this Cueto. His per-9s aren't that good. I'm not a huge fan of his pitch selection. I mean, his pitch selection is fine, but I thought that I could do better than that. So what I did is I put Vida Blue in there to give me my second lefty, and then I went with this 89 Tim Lincecum, whose per-9s are much better than the Johnny Cuetos, and I also like his all-speed stuff quite a bit. But he doesn't throw quite as hard as the Cueto, but I think that's going to be okay. I think this guy is the overall better pitcher. So, I mean, I don't know if there is going to be a team that has better starting pitching than the Giants. So I gave them a 10 out of 10 on the pitching front. It's just so good. Later on, they do struggle in a few areas, but pitching or starting pitching is definitely not one of them. Okay, moving on to the bullpen, things start to get a little bit more bleak. You have to start out with the 85 overall Melanson. I'm not a big fan of this reliever at all, but if you have a gold reliever and you're kind of in short supply, and almost every team in the game is, you have to grab the gold, right? Like, there's no other option. And this guy isn't useless, I mean, he's okay. He's just not, he's not even really okay. He's pretty bad. But for a team like this, you have to throw him on there. He would not be my closer, though. My closer would be Hunter Strickland. Hunter Strickland is definitely a guy worthy of the closer role. Whenever he plays up, his per-nines are very solid, and his stuff is amazing. He can run it up to 100. Very, very good closer-type reliever. And then another setup guy or a lefty guy would be the 80 overall Will Smith. So that gives you a nice top three, it gives you a nice lefty to mix in there. But after that, things start to get a little more iffy. So we go down, and the next guy that you have to throw in there is Corey Guerin. For a bronze reliever, he has pretty decent per-nines. They're not terrible. And he's a sinker baller, so that's another plus. Then you go down, and you have Derek Law, the 78 overall Derek Law. Then you have to go with the Sam Dyson, who is another sinker baller. Is a Derek Law a sinker? No, he's not. Okay, but the Sam Dyson, his per-nines aren't that great, especially while he's playing down right now. But he has really good stuff, and he also has that sinker, pretty good slider, all that good stuff. So you have to throw Sam Dyson in there. And then after that, I thought about going with George Contos right here for my seventh guy, but I couldn't do it. I had to get another lefty in there. So I went with a 74 overall Matt Reynolds. This would be kind of a last, worst case scenario type guy, but I feel like you need to have at least two lefties in your bullpen to be successful. And overall, this bullpen just doesn't have the depth to be considered great. But I do think that the top three will put them above average of most teams, especially with a dominant arm like Hunter Strickland. So I gave them a grade of a 5.6 for their bullpen. Okay, moving on to starters. Their starters are kind of in between their starting pitching and their bullpen. It's pretty good, but it's not fantastic. It looks fantastic because you have so many diamonds and everything, but you start to see some flaws. Starting off, you have the 97 Buster Posey. Obviously, this guy is great, but he does have a flaw. He does not hit righties all that well. He demolishes left-handed pitching, but against righties, he's okay. And that kind of becomes a trend later on with the Giants players, is you'll kind of start to see that. But at first base, you have to go with the Willie McCovey. I had some debate between the Will Clark or the Willie McCovey, but I decided to go with the McCovey just because he hits righties a little bit better. And I thought that was more important, maybe, but I'm definitely, we'll get back to this Will Clark. At second base, I went with the 88 Joe Morgan just because he was the best option. I suppose you could make an argument for the 79 overall Joe Panic, but I don't know. It was tough. It was a little tougher than you might think, a gold versus a bronze. You would think that'd be a no-brainer. But this Joe Morgan really isn't fantastic, but he will get the job done in an exercise like this where you are going to have holes on your offense. This guy is probably going to be one of those, but I think he will be okay, not terrible for you. And then at shortstop, you have to go with the 88 overall Brandon Crawford, get that amazing defense, and this has always been a guy offensively that seems to play up. He always seems to play better than the 64-68 would indicate. I've hit a lot of home runs with this guy, and he does play just flawless defense out there at shortstop, so that he's a very valuable guy to have on a team like this. Then at third base, we're going to go with Eduardo Nunez. I've talked about this guy a ton. He's one of my favorite players in the game in terms of just like getting value. This guy is second to none. He has a ton of speed. He hits righties very well, and he hits lefties kind of like the Brandon Crawford better than you would think. He has a little bit more pop versus lefties, so that kind of makes him play up a little bit. I really love this card, and the fact that he can play 5 different positions is also awesome. I would really love to have him on my bench. I kind of wish that they had a really good third baseman that I could plug in and then use this guy off my bench. Unfortunately, they don't, so I have to start him at third base. And then moving on to outfield. In left field, we got to start out with the 87 overall Melky Cabrera. Kind of like the Buster Posey, this is a guy that kind of crushes left-handed pitching, but against righties, he has good contact, but he doesn't have a lot of pop. Does have some vision to go along with it too, so your PCI size is never going to be an issue with this guy, and he is a switch hitter, which adds a good bit of value to him. So this was really a no-brainer. He was definitely the guy that to put in left field. Then in center field, it was pretty light. They're pretty light on center fielders, so I had to go with an 80 overall Denard Span. I'm not super pumped about this pick, but he does hit righties okay as far as contact and vision goes, and he does play a pretty decent outfield. Like he defensively, he's pretty good. The only downside is his arm accuracy, and I don't even really think that arm accuracy is all that important if you use button accuracy interface. So Denard Span, definitely a good pickup there. And then in right field, another guy who crushes lefties, and against righties, he's not so hot. The 91 overall Hunter Pence. But this guy does bring some other things to the table. He brings a decent amount of speed and some really good defense. So that's nice to have out there in right field. Defense is not going to be an issue with this team. It's going to be really facing right-handed pitching, and they do kind of struggle. They have a couple guys that can hit righties pretty well, but they do have like 3 or 4 guys who just don't. Okay, and on the bench, this kind of sucked. I definitely am going to put the 92 overall Will Clark in there, but then you go down here and you have the 86 overall Orlando Cepeda, who doesn't have an outfield secondary position, which sucks. But he's a great hitter, but you come to that dilemma. Do you want 2 first basemen on your bench? And once I started going through it, I was like, yeah, I really do, because the starting lineup is kind of light hitting. It's not the best against right-handed pitching. So I was like, yeah, I kind of want those big bats on my bench that can maybe make up for that. So I ended up going with Will Clark and Orlando Cepeda. And then I'm going to carry 2 catchers on every team that I do, just because it seems more realistic. It seems like what teams would do. I don't think you would ever catch an MLB team that only carried 1 catcher, even though in the game, it's pretty common to see guys who only do that. I do that. But in this exercise, we're going to carry 2 catchers. So I went with the 79 overall Nick Hundley, and then I went with Kelby Tomlinson as kind of a utility guy, kind of a guy that could come in, maybe hit lefties, maybe as a defensive replacement or something like that. Can play 4 different positions, so you got to kind of like that. And then I brought in Austin Slater. Now, I know that a lot of you will be kind of hankering for Joe Panic, but these guys who, kind of hit for contact and no power, they're kind of dime a dozen on the Giants, and I really wanted this Austin Slater card because against lefties, he has a little bit of pop, and he can play second base and anywhere in the outfield, so all of those are positives, and I decided to bring him on the team instead of Joe Panic. So that is our 25-man roster. I scored their hitting a 6.8, and once you add all that up together, their team overall comes out to a 22.4 out of 30. So a very, very high bar set for the rest of the league. And as you can see, there are going to be some teams who really struggle with exercises like this. Like the Rockies aren't going to be that good. I know there was one team that I saw, maybe it was like the Athletics or somebody, who were really going to struggle in something like this. You have to have a good mix of live series and flashback players to have a good chance of doing something. I don't know, maybe the Athletics will be okay. Problem is they don't have any live series players. The Angels should be pretty good. Maybe the Twins. Was it the Twins? Twins might have a rough time. I don't know. We'll see. Anyways, guys, that is going to do it. Tomorrow we will be doing the Padres, I believe. and we'll see where the Padres end up. Yeah. Anyways, guys, I will see y'all. I said tomorrow. I will see y'all later with some player reviews. But until then, peace.